In 2000, the Sequoia Park wildfire consumed everything. It claimed the life of lead biologist James Hawk. His last words over the radio, "Michael, there's something wrong with the fire here," were cut short by static. Michael Turner, a biologist and fire expert at UCLA, rushed to his friend, but smoke and heat stopped him. James burned to death. The official investigation cited natural ignition from a lightning strike as the cause, but Michael, a leading wildfire expert at UCLA, saw something in the fire's wake that others missed. After the tragedy, Michael couldn't go back to his old job. The lab, scientific conferences, articles in prestigious journals, all of it now seemed meaningless. His research was helping to predict fire behavior, but he couldn't save his friend. For 3 years, he tried to find answers in the scientific data, analyzing every detail of that fire. The way the fire spread, the temperatures, the signs of combustion only added to the doubts. In 2004, he made a decision that surprised his colleagues. He left a successful scientific career to become a ranger in the park's most isolated area, Mineral King. The area, at an altitude of 2,300 meters, riddled with abandoned mines from the 19th century, has kept its secrets for decades. In 30 years, 47 people have gone missing here, according to official statistics. The unofficial figure was much higher. "I need to be out there on the ground," he explained his choice. "The real answers can't be found in a lab." His scientific background made him an unusual ranger. Where others saw mere footprints, he read whole stories. He knew how fire changes the soil, how animals behave before a fire, how smoke spreads in mountainous conditions. That knowledge came in handy in the spring of 2004 when he discovered something in the abandoned No. 7 mine that turned his understanding of the 2000 fire upside down. The discovery launched an investigation that would span 5 years and uncover one of the most shocking schemes in the history of U.S. national parks. What started out as a story about the death of a friend turned into something far more sinister. The old Mineral King mines hid a secret where scientific knowledge met human greed, and the fire of 2000 was just the tip of the iceberg. The fire hid something more terrifying than Michael could have imagined. On the 15th of March 2004, acrid smoke billowed from mine No. 7, and Michael Turner knew it wasn't a fire. On the 15th of March 2004, smoke detectors in the east sector of Mineral King went off at 4:37 a.m. Michael Turner was one of the first to receive the signal on his console. His shift had just begun, but he already knew this day would be unlike any other. This was the 3rd time in a month that the detectors had been triggered in this area, just a mile from the infamous Mine 7. Each time, patrols found only cooling coals and no sign of fire. "Strange smoke," Michael wrote in his log. "Too dense for a natural fire, but dissipating too quickly." His scientific experience told him something was wrong here. The nature of the smoke resembled a chemical fire, but where would chemicals come from in an abandoned mine? By 6 a.m., he was already there. The tracks led to an old mine entrance that must have been mothballed back in the 80s. The grate at the entrance had been neatly cut, obviously by professional equipment. Inside the mine, the temperature was unusually high for a March morning. "Center, this is Turner. I've detected signs of intrusion in mine No. 7. Requesting backup," Michael spoke into the radio, examining the footprints on the dusty floor. 2 men, maybe 3, heavy equipment. The dispatcher's response made him frown. "Turner, Sheriff Baker is on his way. Requires you to wait outside." The local police had long tried to take over jurisdiction over the mines from the Park Service, but Michael couldn't wait. He remembered all too well how procrastination had cost his friend's life. 50 meters from the entrance, the shaft branched off. The left tunnel had collapsed in the 90s, but the right tunnel? A torch beam caught something in the darkness that gave Michael a chill. Modern lab equipment stood against the wall. Thermostats, flasks, chemical reagents, and a timer, just like the one he'd seen in the photos of James's death. A sudden noise made him turn round. A light flickered at the far end of the tunnel. Someone was walking quickly away deep into the shaft. "Freeze! Park Service!" shouted Michael, dashing after him. But the pursuit was interrupted by a sharp pop and a wave of hot air. Part of the tunnel ahead collapsed. When Sheriff Baker and his team arrived an hour later, there was no trace of the lab, just scorched walls and a strange chemical smell. "Looks like another prankster," the sheriff concluded without even looking at the footprints. "Teenagers messing around with firecrackers, not worth wasting your time." But Michael knew it wasn't pranksters. The nature of the collapse, the precision of the detonation, the professional equipment, someone was very clever at covering their tracks, just like 4 years ago. He spent the evening going through old reports. In the last 5 years, there had been 17 fires within a 10-mile radius of Mine 7. All of them had been ruled accidental or natural, all except the one that killed James. And now Michael had a lead. In his work log, he wrote, "Mine 7, chemical equipment, timer identical to 2000, possible communication with..." The record is cut off at half a word. At 11:40 p.m., the fire alarm went off in the west sector of the park. This time, the fire was real. When Michael arrived on the scene, the fire had already engulfed the old information center. It was where the mine archives for the last 30 years were kept. Too much of a coincidence, he thought as he helped evacuate the documents. A familiar face flashed through the smoke. Dr. Sarah Hayes, a geologist in the park's science department. Strange to see her here so late, Michael noted to himself. By morning, only charred walls remained of the building. Most of the archive had perished in the fire. While removing the rubble, firefighters found evidence, a burnt laptop. Expertise showed, before the fire, someone was urgently deleting files. It's not a simple coincidence. Michael studied the surveillance data. In the week before the fire, the information center had had unusual visitors. People in suits, carrying Federal Service documents. They'd spent hours there, copying some kind of material. Michael began to piece together the facts. Mine 7, the lab, the timers, the fire in the archive. The picture was getting frightening. In his new work log, he wrote, "Theory. Someone is using the old mines for experiments, possibly related to government research. Need to check Dr. Hayes' connection to the 2000 fire. Her signature is on the chemical analysis of the soil from the site of James's death. The same chemical markers were found in Mine 7 today. Coincidence? Request records of her work in 1,999 to 2,000 inches." On the 17th of April 2004, Dr. Sarah Hayes abruptly resigned and left the park. Her new job is classified. A week later, Michael received an official order. The investigation of smoke in the area of Mine 7 has been transferred to federal agencies. Access to the local rangers was denied, but Michael wasn't going to stop. He knew now, James's death wasn't an accident. It was part of something bigger, and he would devote the next 3 years to an undercover investigation that would lead him to a shocking discovery. But for now, on the evening of 2004, he had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. On the 7th of January 2007, Mine 12 shuddered with a deafening explosion. Michael Turner dropped his walkie-talkie. It wasn't an earthquake. January 2007 was unusually dry for Mineral King. Michael Turner was just finishing his morning rounds when he received a strange call. Alex Reed, a young geologist who had recently arrived at the park to study seismic activity, was reporting strange vibrations near Mine 12. "It sounds like underground explosions, but regular, like on a schedule," he explained. The 3 years of calm after the 2004 events taught Michael patience. All the while, he was secretly gathering information. The official investigation was closed, but he kept watching, and now it seems his patience is beginning to pay off. Reed's sensors recorded fluctuations every 72 hours. "Too precise for a natural phenomenon," Michael remarked as he studied the graphs. A detail from an old report came to mind. Before the 2000 fire, seismologists had also recorded strange fluctuations. On the 20th of January, he and Reed went down into the number 12 shaft. Alex installed new sensors and Michael studied the traces on the walls. Suddenly, an unusual rock caught his attention. "This isn't a local mineral," Reed shined his torch on the dark veins in the rock. "Looks like traces of artificial embedding. Someone pumped something into the rock." Analysis of the samples in the park lab showed shocking results. Traces of an experimental chemical composition were found in the rock. According to the database, such developments were carried out at a closed research center in Nevada, the same facility where Dr. Hayes transferred to in 2004. Michael began to notice other oddities: an increase in the number of dead birds near the mines, unexplained interference in electronic equipment, and, most disturbing of all, an increase in missing hikers. 5 people have disappeared in the last 6 months, all within a 2-mile radius of the old mine system. On the 7th of February, Alex Reed didn't make contact. His tent was found empty, his equipment untouched. On the table was a thumb drive with the latest data and a note. Michael Turner, they know we know. Check the data for 1978. Michael spent several nights studying the 1978 archives. That's when Mineral King experienced a series of earthquakes. Unusual earthquakes. They didn't fit any known geological model. Immediately afterwards, the government bought a large tract of land around the mines. The official reason was to create a conservation area. A week after Reed's disappearance, a commission from Washington arrived at the park. The formal reason was a routine security check, but Michael noticed one of the inspectors secretly meeting with local Sheriff Baker, the same one who was so careless with the evidence in 2004. On the 15th of February, all of Reed's seismic sensors failed simultaneously. The next day, Michael received an anonymous letter. Inside is an old photograph of a scientific expedition from 1978. In the background is equipment identical to what was found in Mine 7 in 2004. And among the scientists is a young Dr. Robert Hayes, Sarah Hayes' father. In his diary, Michael wrote, "These aren't just experiments, it's a continuation of something that started almost 30 years ago. And James, he wasn't there in 2000 by accident. He knew something." On the evening of the 20th of February, a fire alarm went off in the northern sector. When Michael arrived on the scene, he saw a familiar sight: strange smoke, the distinctive smell of chemicals. And in the glow of the flames, he thought he saw a figure in a hazmat suit walking quickly into the woods, a figure so similar to Sarah Hayes. The investigation had gone too far. Now Michael realized he wasn't the only one searching for the truth about the Mineral King mines, and some are willing to kill to keep the secret. But he couldn't stop now. For somewhere in here lay the truth about his friend's death, and deep inside the mines, something kept pulsing every 72 hours, something that started in 1978 and led to James's death in 2000, something that could have cost Michael his own life. By early March, the situation had become critical. Michael's office was broken into twice by unknown assailants. Sheriff Baker began to openly monitor his movements, explaining it as a security concern, and his request to the archives of other national parks began to be denied. But Michael had an unexpected ally. Jan Cooper, James's widow, who worked in a San Francisco chemistry lab, sent the results of the soil samples he had smuggled to her. "This is impossible," she wrote. "Such compounds are unstable in nature. They can only be created in a laboratory, and they are exactly the same as the 2000 samples." On the 12th of March 2007, Michael received an anonymous call. A woman's voice, distorted by static. "Check the military records for 1977. Project Mineral Gate. It's not experiments, it's more than that." An examination of the recorded conversation confirmed it was Sarah Hayes' voice. Through his old scientific connections, Michael began searching for information about Mineral Gate. He found a secret Pentagon project, closed in 1978 after a series of unforeseen incidents. The head of the project was Dr. Robert Hayes. The official purpose was to investigate deep geological processes. The actual purpose is classified to this day. At the end of March, a new commission arrived at the park, this time from the Center for Disease Control. The official version was to check the quality of the water in the springs, but Michael spotted among the medics a man he'd seen in a 1978 photograph. He had not changed much, as if time had not touched him. On the 5th of April, Jen Cooper's laboratory was searched. All samples and test results were confiscated. A day later, she called Michael. "They offered me a job at the same center that Sarah Hayes transferred to. They say it's related to James's work. What do I do?" Michael realized the circle was narrowing. Someone was methodically removing all traces but deliberately leaving him clues, like they wanted him to know the truth, or was leading him to something. In his diary he wrote, What if the fires are not the goal, but a side effect? What if there has been some kind of experiment going on all these years underground at Mineral King? Something so important that the government is willing to kill to keep it secret, and most importantly, why here? The answer came unexpectedly. On the 15th of April 2007, while looking at old geological maps, Michael discovered a strange anomaly. Underneath the Mineral King mine system was something that shouldn't be there. Something that could explain the strange earthquakes, the unexplained fires, and the classified experiments. But before he could test his hunch, an event occurred that changed everything. An event that made him question everything he knew about nature and science. At 4:17 a.m. on the 12th of May 2009, the sensors blared. Mine 7 was ready to explode. By May 2009, Michael Turner had put all the pieces of the puzzle together. The geological anomaly beneath the Mineral King mines turned out to be a massive underground formation, a natural repository of rare earth elements with unique properties. This is what Dr. Robert Hayes discovered in 1977, which is why the Mineral Gate project was classified. At 4:17 a.m. on the 12th of May, motion sensors detected activity at Mine 7. On the camera footage, Michael saw a familiar figure, Sarah Hayes in a protective suit entering the mine with a group of men in military uniforms. He realized it was time to act. At 5:30, Michael sent an encrypted message to Jan Cooper. "Backup ready?" The reply came a minute later. "Server secured, waiting." Within a year, she'd created a secure server to store all the evidence. Now, no matter what happened, the truth wouldn't disappear. In the mine, Hayes' group descended to the lower level. Michael followed them using an old technical tunnel. The sound of their conversation echoed off the walls. "The reaction is unstable. We need to shut down the project. Too dangerous." Suddenly, a familiar pulsing sound came from the depths. But now it was louder, more intense. The instruments on Michael's belt went crazy. Radiation, electromagnetic pulses, seismic activity, everything was off the scale. "I knew you'd come," Sarah's voice came from right behind me. "So did James back then. You're both too smart." Over the next 2 hours, Michael learned the whole truth. About the military's secret program to create a new type of weapon. About how his friend James had accidentally discovered traces of the experiments and died trying to gather evidence. About how Sarah had tried to stop her father's project, but found herself too deeply involved. "We thought we could control this," Sarah pointed to the massive installation in the central cavern. "But it's becoming unstable. Every test causes microfractures in the rock. One day it will destroy the whole valley." At that moment, the security system howled an alarm. The monitors showed cracks spreading up the walls of the shaft. "It's starting," Sarah whispered. "We're too late." The next 40 minutes turned into a race against time. Michael and Sarah tried to start the emergency shutdown protocol while the military evacuated personnel. Water was already seeping through the cracks, and radiation levels continued to rise. "James was trying to prevent this," Sarah shouted through the rumble of collapsing rocks. "He found evidence that the experiments were destabilizing the whole system." At 8:45, Michael received a message from Jan. "Files received. Everything is recorded." He now had all the proof of both the government's crimes and James' death. When he and Sarah got to the surface, they were already waiting. General Harris, the head of the project, with a group of military men. "You realize this is a matter of national security?" His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. 2 folders lay in front of Michael. In one was a non-disclosure agreement, security guarantees for him and Jen, compensation for James's family, closure of all dangerous facilities in the park. In the other was an arrest warrant for treason and a list of accidents that had happened to other witnesses to the project. Make up your mind, Ranger Turner, but remember, sometimes the truth can do more harm than silence. Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. Michael, the project will be shut down either way, I guarantee it. Now the question is, how many more lives will be broken? In his last entry in the Ranger's journal, Michael wrote, "The truth has a price. Sometimes that price is the truth itself. James died trying to save people. Maybe real justice is to finish his job by protecting those who are still alive. The next day, all the equipment from the mines was removed. The entrances were blocked and officially declared dangerous due to natural geological processes. Sarah Hayes led a new project to monitor seismic activity in the park, and Michael continued to serve as a ranger at Mineral King. Now he protected not only nature, but also a secret buried deep beneath the mountains. And only he and Sarah knew that somewhere on Jen Cooper's secure server was the complete history of the Mineral Gate project. A story that might one day see the light of day, when the world is ready to know the truth. Now every night, Michael Turner hears James's footsteps in the silence of Mineral King. Mineral King has changed. The old mines are securely sealed off with concrete slabs and marked on maps as a danger zone due to risk of collapse. A new monitoring system installed under the direction of Dr. Sarah Hayes monitors seismic activity around the clock. Officially, it's for the safety of tourists. Michael Turner still works here as a ranger. Now he is the park's chief of security, and his experience and knowledge are highly valued by the management. Under his leadership, a state-of-the-art fire protection system has been implemented, and accident statistics have been reduced by 60%. James Hawk's family has received significant compensation from the state. The official reason was review of the accident case. Jen Cooper headed a new environmental monitoring lab in San Francisco. The secure server with the documents still exists, although access is securely encrypted. Sheriff Baker has retired. He has been replaced by a young officer who works closely with the Park Service. Incidents of poaching and missing persons in the area of the old mines have stopped. Once a month, Michael receives an encrypted letter from Sarah. They never discuss the past, but they both know. There is still a secret beneath the Mineral King underground. A secret that may one day become public knowledge. But for now, the Ranger's yellow journal holds one last entry. Sometimes saving lives is more important than revealing the truth. I'm sorry, James. I hope you'd understand. Friends, you have just heard the story of the events at Mineral King. A story about the choice between truth and safety, about the price of silence and the weight of secrets. Do you think Michael was right to keep the secret? Maybe society needs to know the truth, no matter how dangerous it is. Or are there secrets that are better left buried deep underground? And what do you think is really stored in those sealed mines? Write your opinions in the comments. If the story hooked you as much as it did me, support the channel by liking and subscribing. There are many more unsolved mysteries and mysterious stories from the most amazing corners of our planet. See you in the next issue.